See, Harsh, if you talk about e-learning or virtual learning, the first thing is what people do think about this is what they speculate actually is कि जो आपका virtual learning है वो real learning को replace कर सकता है फिर नहीं। तो ये मेरा हमेशा से पॉलिसी रहा है। I'm been working in e-learning from 2011 जब ये सब स्टार्ट भी नहीं हुआ था। So तब से लेकर अब तक I have seen many changes in this particular sector. बट एक थिंग बहुत सिंपल है कि रियल लर्निंग को रियल लर्निंग को ये रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकता, क्योंकि रियल लर्निंग के अंदर ना फीलिंग्स जैसे आपने कहा फेस टू फेस इंटरेक्शन है, पीयर्स के साथ इंटरेक्शन है, लाइफ वैल्यू से जो स्टूडेंट सीखता है क्लास के अंदर बैठकर, तो इन सब चीज़ों को आप ई लर्निंग से रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकते।
The state of education was morphing into something new and exciting long before 2020. But this seems to be the year that e-learning industry is really flexing its muscles. As societies undertake this giant experiment on how to make online education work for the masses, it's a good time to stop and think about what it will teach us and where will it take us. Now over 6 million students around the world pursue higher education through online courses, with that number set to keep rising. Hello and welcome to the Honest Talk by Freak Folks. I'm Harsh Pandey. For this particular session, we have with us very special guest joining us all the way from Rajasthan Kota, Mr. Prince Singh sir. He is the Joint Director of ITUS India, having 13 plus years of experience teaching JEE and NEET aspirants. He is an alumnus of MNIT Jaipur. So first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Harsh.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure. So moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is e-learning, a substitute for classroom learning. We must admit that face-to-face interaction between teachers and students are, along with the vibrant and healthy debates among peers within the classroom and outside, are the integral part to quality teaching as envisioned by the Sustainable Development Goals. So my very first question to you is, or rather it's a kind of request to you, so what do you believe, what this shift to virtual learning could mean for the future of education?
See, Harsh, if you talk about e-learning or virtual learning, the first thing is what people do think about this is what they speculate actually is कि जो आपका virtual learning है वो real learning को replace कर सकता है फिर नहीं। तो ये मेरा हमेशा से पॉलिसी रहा है। I've been working in e-learning from 2011 जब ये सब स्टार्ट भी नहीं हुआ था। So तब से लेकर अब तक I have seen many changes in this particular sector. बट एक थिंग बहुत सिंपल है कि रियल लर्निंग को ये रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकता है, क्योंकि रियल लर्निंग के अंदर ना फीलिंग्स जुड़े, जैसे आपने कहा फेस टू फेस इंटरेक्शन है, पीयर्स के साथ इंटरेक्शन है, लाइफ वैल्यू से जो स्टूडेंट सीखता है क्लास के अंदर बैठकर, तो इन सब चीजों को आप ई लर्निंग से रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकते। सो वेयर डज दिस ई लर्निंग पार्ट स्टैंड्स? सो इट स्टैंड्स एक्चुअली इन सप्लीमेंट फॉर्म। आपने देखा होगा कि ई लर्निंग का सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज क्या है कि इंडिया के वो कॉर्नर्स, वो सिटीज, वो गांव, वो शहर जहां पर क्वालिटी एजुकेशन अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो वहां पर इस ई लर्निंग ने क्या किया है, क्वालिटी एजुकेशन को, जो अच्छे टीचर्स हैं, वो टीचर्स जो स्टूडेंट्स की प्रॉब्लम को समझते हैं, उनको सॉल्व करना जानते हैं, उन टीचर्स को देश के कोने कोने तक पहुंचा दिया है। तो एक्सेसिबिलिटी बढ़ा दी है और वो उसे बढ़ाता रहेगा। दिस इज एवर एक्सपेंडिंग, बट इट विल ऑलवेज बी अ सप्लीमेंट फॉर्म ऑफ द रियल टीचिंग और द रियल क्लासरूम फीलिंग। तो जब भी कभी इश्यूज आते हैं, जैसे आज आप भी हैं, आज से कई साल पहले हम जो यूट्यूब पे कर रहे हैं, यूट्यूब शुरू हुआ था, तब आपने कभी नहीं सोचा था कि आप यूट्यूब से चीजें सीखोगे। आज से 10 साल पहले, 11 साल पहले अगर आप बात करते हैं, बट जो आज का जो सिनेरियो चल रहा है उसके अंदर आपको कुछ भी ढूंढना था, अगर आपको चीज नहीं आती तो यू रन फॉर यूट्यूब। आप सबसे पहले सर्च बार में टाइप करते हो ये क्या है, और आपको बहुत सारा कंटेंट मिलता है जिससे आप चीजों को सीख सकते हो। तो ई लर्निंग एक्सेसिबिलिटी को ईजी कर रहा है, वो एक्सेसिबल बना रहा है हर स्टूडेंट को, हर टीचर के लिए, उससे जिससे जो चीज समझ में आती है, जो जिस भी चीज को वो पढ़ना चाहता है, वेदर इट्स साइंस, आर्ट्स, कॉमर्स, कुछ भी है, तो उन सबको वो क्या कर रहा है, इजी बना रहा है, एक्सेसिबल बना रहा है इंडिया के हर एक स्टूडेंट के लिए।
Indeed, sir. I think you have touched on many important elements, and we need to understand that e-learning cannot adopt this complete model, but we can use this as a part and a supportive kind of thing. So my next question to you is, as we know, we have moved into
Yeah,
this.
it's simple. It's simple. Like this also. I want to add some points also into this, that whether e-learning can replace it or not. So what I personally think is it's all about feeling. Like for example, if we see in India cricket, so every cricket match is live with all the details and analytics are there, which you cannot see from a stadium.
Yes,
But still, when Corona was not there, and after Corona also, the stadiums will be packed because it gives you a feeling. There is an emotion. We can watch movies from any OTT platform.
correct.
We can binge watch. We can watch it anytime. But still, you will go to theaters to
Yes,
live that feeling. So the classroom feeling is ever going to last, and e-learning is going to support it with its technologies, with its accessibility, and obviously, it's relatively economic also.
indeed, sir. I think you have again mentioned very correct point that we need to feel. And suppose when students are preparing for their any competitive kind of thing, the competitive exam, and when they feel the kind of competition in the class, they actually prepare themselves better. So my next question to you is, as we have moved into this 21st year of this 21st century and passing through this very unprecedented time, the way we do study has changed, of course. We now operate in an environment that can be very aptly described as VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. The pace of change is fast and getting faster. Organizations are flatter, customer demands are ever increasing, competition is global, and continuous disruption are now considered as new normal. So my question to you is, what do you believe? What is needed to survive and thrive in such a VUCA world, especially if we focus on the education sector? What kind of leadership do we need?
See, education sector is it's very different from other sectors, and if we talk about in terms of demands, in terms of customer demands, and what you said as VUCA. So basically, in education sector, the prime thing is there are two basic things on which this sector works. One is what customer needs, what the student needs, and second thing is how you deliver the content, how you uh, like basically the input you are giving to him, will it improve his results or not? So the output and input, there are two parts which have to work incoherently. In education sector, you have to mainly focus on the outcome part of this journey, where the student will get results. So if you can prepare, or you can make a way, or make a, let's say, algorithm or something, like some process through which if a student passes, he will improve his results. So in education sector, the output is immediate. When you are doing something for a student and he is following it, he will get the result. And if he gets the positive results, he will obviously support you, and
Correct.
he will be obliged to you also. So basically, जो मुझे लगता है कि बेसिकली इस जो भी एनवायरनमेंट अभी चल रहा है, ठीक है, बहुत सारी चीजें हो रही है, ठीक है, वॉलेटिलिटी भी है, सब चीजें हैं, लेकिन इसमें फोकस करना चाहिए मेन चीज कि आप स्टूडेंट को कैसे फायदा हो रहा है। तो एजुकेशन सेक्टर में अगर आप बात करें तो उसका प्राइम जो कोर है वो है स्टूडेंट की साइकोलॉजी, और किस तरह से आप एक स्टूडेंट को फायदा करवा सकते हो अपनी टीचिंग मेथोडोलॉजी से, अपनी टेक्नोलॉजी से, अपने सिस्टम से। ये सब मिलकर एक काम करें और एक ही चीज पे फोकस करते हैं, वो है स्टूडेंट का फायदा, उसका रिजल्ट। अगर वो इम्प्रूव होता है तो स्टूडेंट ऑब्वियसली आप ही को चूज करने वाला है। और आप इन सारे फैक्टर से, मतलब सोल, अगर आप अपना कोर जो है आपने अगर मेंटेन रखा है, अगर आप सिर्फ बिजनेस पर्पस से नहीं देख रहे हैं, तो यू आर गोइंग टू इजीली पास दिस हर्डल आल्सो।
Indeed, sir. So can we consider that it is a kind of a sector where we measure the performance of teacher on the basis of student performance?
Yes, it's relative actually. It's
Uh,
relative. A student's performance depends on teacher's effort also. Like one
right.
way effort से यहाँ पे नहीं होता है। अगर student effort लगा रहा है तो obviously is going to get higher. But अगर teacher भी equal effort लगाए तो वो जो growth है वो rocket बन जाती है, वो growth exponential होती है।
That's important. So my next question to you is,
You know why code?
yes, yes, sir, please.
I think I'm losing you.
Uh, Let me check.
Do you know why the hub of IIT JEE and NEET preparation? Do you know the reason behind that?
No, actually,
Why
no.
in all of India only Kota? Why Kota? The reason is the competitiveness in between teachers also.
Okay.
So when you are teaching in classroom, when you are part of an institution, so there are many batches going on. Every teacher is taking some batches. So along with students, teachers are also having a competition within them, that they have to deliver the best content, they have to produce the best result. So the students see teachers as competing, so they get that competitive feeling from them also. And
Yes.
when they're connected to a teacher, they want to prove that this teacher which has taught us, he should be famous like in this way, that he has taught us many things. He is the one who can uh, teach you anything, who can make you understand anything. So that competitiveness, when evolves, it will pass all the hurdles like these.
Correct. And I think this is the most important element of this if we talk in the offline scenario. But this is the most one of the challenges also, if we say this. Actually, this challenge has been overcome by the online education so that everyone has the access of good teachers, good education. So my next question to you is thinking about the
Yes.
impact of the coronavirus and the kinds of tool and services that could be focused on ensuring that students don't miss a beat in their learning. COVID-19 has brought home the reality, the education technology, as you have mentioned, that delivers great content and engages students and teachers has never been more important. Thousands of entrepreneurs and innovation can help our students keep moving in their educational journey no matter what where this disruption takes them. So my question to you is how do you see the role leadership and their entrepreneurial thinking in making it possible? Because when we have seen this coronavirus come, suddenly all people start thinking about the kind of substitute what we can do so that the students don't get or lag behind in their studies.
Harsha, as you can see, there are many companies right now working for in the field of e-learning. But there is a category. There are different mindset and people of different mindset. The one who actually wants to spread the education to each and every one person, and obviously this has become a business also. Money is a secondary part in education business, but I always think it's when you do some work thing, obviously you have to make your living also.
Hmm.
So but the main thing is when you are working as an entrepreneur, so what you have to think over is that how your product is going to again benefit the student. It's all about the benefit of student. If you are making some technology, if you are making some product, then the core of it should be that how the student will use it and how he will get the maximum benefit out of it. So if he's getting that benefit, he's improving his result. Let's say you have prepared some course, let's say you have prepared some platform which can help student to attain their goals, then it will obviously when it delivers the result, the student is going to be very happy with it and he will spread the word. It's all about word of mouth. Education sector works from word of mouth. As you can see, if you are a user, if you are studying from somewhere, and if you are satisfied with their pedagogies, their techniques, their processes, then obviously you will recommend that platform to your friend also.
Correct.
But if you are not satisfied with that, you see that there are some loopholes, then obviously you are not going to recommend it to anyone else. So when you are working in this particular sector, what I believe is your main core should be the benefit of student. Whatever you design, whatever you plan, whatever you do, you should not keep money in the vision. That will come as a supportive, like it will come together. You need not to think about that. But what you should think about is how you can take this quality education to each and every corner of India. So this is how it should work. And as you can see, many entrepreneurs are working in this particular uh, sector. They're preparing different solutions. Actually, it's a very vast sector,
Hmm.
from first class to 12th class, then for competitive exams like JEE, NEET, CAT, UPSC. There are plenty of exams in India, and the requirement is different for different section or sector.
Hmm.
Like for JEE, NEET, you have a different set of students and different requirements. For let's say CA, you have different set of students and different requirements. So there is a vast category. You can Many of these entrepreneurs can serve each category, or they can obviously many of them are trying to serve every category. But what I think is every category has to plan in different way, and there are many options right now available for many entrepreneurs who can still crack the code and who can still deliver the best content and best results from students also.
Indeed, sir. I think it's a kind of it was an answer. I think it was very insightful answer from your side, and I'm sure the viewers who are watching this session they are surely going to find this insightful as well. So my next question to you is: future of edtech. What India's education system can learn from e-learning?
As you've seen that in COVID-19, there are many government schools which are not able to deliver the content.
Mm.
Uh, Already in India, in let's say in government schools, the enrollments are very less. Like if you are there, you won't enroll your child. Like if you ask me, I will not enroll my child into government schools. Why?
Correct.
You know it. We have seen the infrastructure, we have seen the working. But what government schools can do, they can collaborate with this e-learning part. Whatever infrastructure they have, they can mix it with e-learning, and they can deliver that quality content to those students who cannot afford it with their own pockets. So they are dependent on government. So government should take the advantage of this e-learning part, and like some distant schools, like let's say in Rajasthan we have some villages near border in desert. So obviously no teacher wants to go there or stay there, so they generally appoint locals, or they try to uh, bring resources in there, but it's not possible. It's very difficult for them. So e-learning can do this thing. They can launch some e-learning portals, or some collaborative portals or collaborative schools with e-learning institutions, who can provide the required content in obviously an interactive way, an interesting way, and those students can get equal opportunities in this particular education sector.
Indeed, sir. So my next question to you is, as you have, I think, previously covered this topic, but let's be more specific. The education sector in India is growing at a swiftly, with large private individuals collaborating with the government to develop this sector. The government is also considering many steps to enhance the quality of education in India. And the best thing is that parents are now willingly enrolling their children into schools for good education from the primary level. Sir, what do you believe? How do you see the opportunities in educational entrepreneurship?
Harsh, as I told you previously, also in India or in every country, see, education, health, and defense. I think these are the three major pillars or parts which every country works on.
Yes.
So, as far as health, we have seen, but in case of education, also we are not very good in,
Mm.
like, if we talk about India specifically. But still, yes, we Indians have a very good fighting spirit, and whether we have resources or not, whatever we want to do, we can do, and we have proved this thing.
Mm.
So, what are the opportunities? Actually, as I told you, there are many sectors. Like you can see, there are many companies who have grown as unicorns in K-12 sector, from class first to class 12. Then there are many companies who are growing faster in JEE and NEET, in UPSC preparation. So there are vast options available for you. If you want to ask me as an entrepreneur, what you have to choose. So what you can do is, you can first thing is, the main important thing is that you should understand the psychology of student. Whatever stream you're choosing, let's say commerce, you're choosing arts, you are choosing engineering or medical to serve. If you want to prepare a company, if you want to prepare some tool or technology or platform for a student, you should work on the psychology of student. Because if you don't understand the psychology of customer, your customer is your student. So if you don't understand the psychology, you can't make a better product for them. So whenever anyone starts, what I have seen is people are moving towards technology only. See, it's the name ed tech. So both are 50-50%. But right now, what we can see is tech is taking more of it. So I think it should be balanced properly. You have to think about ed also, a proper academic schedule, a proper academic process that will help you out with tech. Tech is just a tool to deliver your content, to connect both of, like, we are connecting with the help of tech. So ed is the major part, and anyone who's trying to do something in this ed tech sector, he should first focus on ed. He should understand the psychology of student, and then start building his technology around it. So this is the main point which you should always focus when you are starting for any edtech startup or any edtech platform, any tool, any service you want to provide to the students. So there are obviously many options available. You can choose any stream you want. You can choose all stream. You can start with one stream, but do always focus that whatever stream you are choosing, you have to understand the psychology of students first. The user is very, very, very important, around which you should build your technologies.
Indeed, sir, you have again told many important things and two major takeaways for me as well. I was listening to you very carefully, and you have first told that we need to first understand the psychology of student. We need to understand the mindset of the end user. That's the most important. And the second one is that you have told whenever we talk about the hashtag, we need to actually balance the thing both in technology and education. We need to give 50-50 importance. Both are incomplete without each other. Sir, I can say there's a lot more to learn from you, but today I don't want to take too much of your time. So moving to my last question of this session. Sir, recently we have seen last year our Indian government has passed or approved the new national education policy. So I want to know, as per the policy, what they have shown, it's a very great thing. They have actually focused on the practical aspects of knowledge, practical aspects of education that's really needed, I think. So what is your opinion on this new education policy approved by the Indian government? Do you think will it change the future of Indian education system?
Harsh, as you have studied, and I have also studied about NEP, that is National Education Policy. And the first thing which we all doubt is implementation.
Yes.
What you see on paper and what is implemented are two very different things. And in concern of India, if we talk about India, it's always different. It's always different. We have seen. So if government can implement at least 70 to 80% part of it, then it's obviously going to change the education system and the learning system in India. Right now, as you have seen, that this policy actually encourages students to study things, to learn things which they are interested in. There are parts that minor and major subjects. So minor subjects are those which are actually essential to learn many things in your life. But major subjects will be those which you have interest in. If you want to be an engineer, you have to study maths, physics, chemistry. Those will be your major subjects. If you want to be, let's say, chartered accountant, or you want to be an, let's say, investor or something like that, then you have to go for commerce. If you want to be a doctor, you have to study for the biology, physics, and maths. These will be your major subjects. If you are performing arts, you want to learn music, you want to learn painting, you want to learn dance. So these all are your interest. So you have to study with your interest. No one will force you to study other subjects. Like we as a child were forced to study many subjects which you don't like. Like I didn't like history, but I have to study till 10th class. And no, like it's not optional. It's compulsory. You have to do it. So obviously government is trying to change, as you have seen, have IB board schools. In IB board schools or in international boards, other board schools, what they focus on is actual learning instead of forced learning. You have to learn through your interest. If you like something, you have to go for that. You have to study for that. You have to learn that. So that will be in your curriculum. So obviously Indian government is trying to match those standards, and we will have to wait to see that to how much part they implemented. But yes, that is for sure if government implements it properly, it is going to change the future of education. It is going to change the learning methodology. It will generate a workforce again, a skillful workforce. And there is one more point to it. As you can see right now in India, the major fields are engineering, medical, commerce, and law. Art students, they don't have much of choices. So this particular education policy will bring more professional jobs in arts and commerce also, because there are many parts in arts which are dependent on your interest. So if you will start working on those particular interests, obviously it will generate new types of profession in that particular sector also. So according to me, yes, it is going to change the future, but yes, it will take time also. What I can estimate is it will take around maybe 10 to 12 years to completely implement it, because they have to train their teachers also. In India, not many teachers are that skilled. So it involves training of teachers also, teaching them new methodologies and encouraging them to use interactive tools and methods to make the student learn things. So yes, I do agree that it will change, but yes, it will take time also.
So we can consider that if it is implemented properly, then that's the welcome change.
Yeah, obviously.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for joining and giving your important time. It was a kind of healthy conversation with you over the topic. We look forward to conduct more such sessions with you in future. Thank you so much, sir, for joining.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Harsh. Thank you very much.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside, I'm alone. so cold outside. I'm alone